Here's two words we don't use enough when it comes to cancer. What if? What if cancer rates keep rising? What if more and more young people continue to get sick? What if rare cancers become less rare? But also, what if the answers we need have been in front of us this whole time? What if the path we've walked for decades isn't the only path? What if money, egos, and an old system keep us from asking better questions? What if the truth has been buried under the weight of, this is how it's always been done? I used to think what if was a question for other people until it became the only question that kept me alive. You may think the hardest part of cancer is hearing the diagnosis, but here's what no one tells you about being given 0% chance to live. It's not just that fear that overwhelms you. It's watching the world quietly start writing your ending while you're still trying to breathe. 3 years ago, I watched my wife be strong for me. I watched my kids pretend they didn't hear the whispers. I watched my family break in slow motion, and I had to sit there and act like I wasn't terrified. There is nothing more painful than watching the people you love practice losing you while you're still right here. That was my life 3 years ago. I remember the exact moment my life split into two, before and after. The doctor didn't even fully sit down before he said it. His voice was steady, mine wasn't. Palliative care, incurable, inoperable, terminal, stage 4 cancer. Less than a year. 0% chance of reaching this moment. 0. I remember my wife's hand shaking in mine. I remember trying to breathe without making a sound. I remember feeling myself leave my own body, like I was watching my life from the outside. Here's a moment I haven't talked about. I would disappear to the bathroom, close the door, and sit on a ledge, so my kids wouldn't hear me break. No father prepares for that. I would bury my face in a towel, not to hide the tears, but to hide the sound of a father breaking. I would look at myself in the mirror before going downstairs, and I could barely recognize the person staring back at me anymore. But downstairs, I could hear my kids laughing, just laughing at something completely random. And for a second, life sounded normal again. But inside my head, I was already imagining everything I might lose. Those were the moments where something inside me broke and something else woke up. There were nights I thought I was disappearing, but even at my worst, I still wanted tomorrow. I still wanted more time. And that changed everything. Because somewhere between fear and numbness, it wasn't loud, it wasn't brave. It was a trembling whisper that somehow survived that fear. What if they're wrong? Cancer, it completely changes the way you see everything. I miss ordinary things, waking up without fear, morning coffee, sitting at a table pretending life is normal. That's why the lake means so much to me. I asked my wife to take me there. A place where everything always slows down for me, where the noise disappears, where I always feel calm. I remember the drive, the silence, the way she kept glancing at me like she was memorizing my face, just in case she needed to remember it later. When we got there, the air was warm, the water was still, too still, like nature was bracing for my exit. A small ripple moved across the surface for a moment, and I saw my reflection distort. Like even the lake didn't even know if I would still be here. I sat there thinking, how do I rehearse a goodbye you never want to learn? How do you leave kids with memories instead of a father? How do you walk away from a life I wasn't ready to stop living? They didn't send me home to fight. They sent me home to prepare for my end. But in that silence, something refused to die. A whisper in my gut, deep down under that fear and grief, a tiny flicker, small, stubborn, alive. What if? Not hope, not yet. Just a question. A question that felt like the first breath I've taken. What if they're wrong? What if there's another way? What if my story isn't finished? What if hope isn't a weakness but a strength? What if the human body is capable of more than we are being told? I didn't have a plan. I didn't have certainty. I didn't have any guarantees. I didn't have time. All I had was a question and my will to live. 5 days later, a complete stranger with nothing to gain gave me something I didn't have. Hope, direction, a reason to try. I stripped my life down to the studs. I changed everything. My sleep, my food, my stress, my movement, my environment, my mindset, my entire way of living. Everything. I turned to metabolic therapy not as a miracle, not instead of medicine, but as a lifeline because it was the only thing that made me feel like I wasn't just waiting to die. I stopped feeding what was hurting me and I started fueling what supported me. I treated my body like it mattered, maybe for the first time in my life. Returning to basics didn't just support me, it saved my life. And slowly, quietly, my body started responding. 3 months later, everything changed. Not a little, not slowly, completely. My scans, my numbers, my energy, my life. The same life they said was ending was coming back. You would expect questions, right? Curiosity, shock, something. How did this happen? What changed? What can we learn? But here's what happened. Nothing. No questions, no investigation, no curiosity, just silence. The kind that tells you sometimes survival raises questions people aren't prepared to ask. And that silence hurt more than the diagnosis because it told me something. Doesn't it seem strange for a disease we claim will do anything to cure? Doesn't it seem odd that someone defies the odds and the system looks away instead of looking closer? If I would have died, I would have just been another statistics, another number on next year's report. But because I survived and lived, I became an inconvenience. I'm not here to attack medicine. I'm here to challenge it because Breakthroughs don't come from ignoring outliers. They come from studying them. And I am one of those outliers. So, let me reintroduce myself. My name is Marc Chianelli, and I am a stage 4 cancer thriver. I am living proof that a prognosis is not a prophecy. I am living proof that your story is not always over when the system says it is. I am a reminder that the human body is more complex than a number. A reminder that statistics don't account for spirit. I am evidence that hope is not naive, it's necessary. I am the question the system doesn't always like to ask. I am, what if? Maybe healing exists in ways we don't fully understand. Maybe survival comes from places outside that textbook. Maybe the human spirit is more powerful than we know. What if we stopped asking the questions that mattered the most? What if returning to basics is more powerful than we think? What if the answers we need have been in front of us this whole time? What if curiosity has been replaced by routine? What if this is how it's always been done is holding us back? I'm not here to sell false hope. I'm here to spark curiosity. Because if we want better outcomes and we truly want to cure cancer, we can't afford to ignore the people who survive the impossible. We need better questions. We need to challenge old assumptions. We need to study the outliers. We need to listen to the stories that don't fit that model. What if your story has a chapter you haven't lived yet? Can you imagine a world where incurable does not mean unchangeable? Aren't we tired of losing? I know I was. Part of me still struggles to understand why I'm here and so many aren't. Today is June 2nd, 2026, the beginning of my year 3, the year I wasn't supposed to see, the year I had 0% chance of reaching. Yet, here I am, stronger, healthier, and more alive than ever. I don't look like a typical stage 4 cancer patient. I look like a healthy stage 4 cancer thriver. And I'm not slowing down, not now, not ever. Year 3 isn't just gratitude. It's grief, it's joy, it's confusing, it's pride. It's waking up and realizing I'm living a life I was told I'll never reach. I'm rebuilding my identity from scratch, learning to trust my body again. You need to understand I didn't just survive cancer. I had to survive the version of myself I had to leave behind. Yes, I survived cancer, but part of me still carries the weight of the ones who didn't. And here's the part that no one prepares you for. When you outlive your prognosis, you become an outlier. People may celebrate you, but they don't always know how to talk to you. Everyone loves a miracle until you have to figure out what to do with one. Being a miracle sounds inspiring until you realize how lonely this can feel, because there's no roadmap for the ones that weren't supposed to be here. You don't just return back to who you were. You rebuild who you are. You learn who you are now in a life you weren't supposed to still be living. Listen, you can be unbreakable all year long, but on scan days, every fear you buried comes back to collect its debt until you read those results. While I'm still trying to rebuild my life, I'm also forced to walk through the wreckage cancer has left behind. Every step means stepping over something it broke, something it took, something I'm learning to live without. Every day I choose myself. Every day I choose to rise with gratitude because I am what if, and so are you. So is every person who has ever been told their story is over. So is every person who has ever been handed a number instead of a chance. So is every person who felt the world give up on them long before we gave up on ourselves. If you hear nothing else from me, hear this. You are allowed to question. You are allowed to hope. You are allowed to fight for your life in ways that make sense to you. You are allowed to refuse an ending someone else wrote for you. I stayed quiet for a long time, but silence doesn't save lives. And year 3 isn't just survival, it's responsibility. Because I'm a man they counted out, and I'm still here, and I'm not done. If you're watching this and your world just changed, I know the feeling, the silence, the shock, the weight of that fear. It's okay to sit down for a second. The ground just moved. Your breath is allowed to shake. You do not need to be strong in this exact moment. I'm not here to pretend I didn't live through this. I know exactly what this moment feels like. This hurt. It's unfair and it's terrifying. But you are still here, and that means something. Take a breath and take another one. Don't look at that whole mountain. Just look at that next step. That's how you survive the impossible. I know what it feels like to think you're running out of time. But hear me. You don't know your story yet. And that's something not to fear. It's something to hold on to. That's a reason to keep going. It's possibility. One day you'll look back at this moment and realize it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of your rise. They counted me out because they couldn't count what was still alive in me. I am what if. Just hold on to one thought. What if they're wrong? You're allowed to feel everything you feel, and you're allowed to believe, even now, that you can make it through this. You don't need to be fearless. You just need one reason, and just one reason to begin.